What exactly is Stormworks in the year 2024? Well, stick around and find out. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the year 2024. I hope you all had a great celebration and that the new year will bring all kinds of luck and happiness to you. So, we're going to be taking a look at the game Stormworks in the year 2024, what we currently have in the game, and what we can hopefully expect of the game in the future. So without further ado, let's begin. For those of you that are not very familiar with Stormworks, maybe you've seen some videos, maybe you've seen it on Steam, this video is for you, and maybe you're a seasoned veteran of the game and you just kind of want an overview of the game as a whole, this video is also for you. So what we've seen since the early releases of the game, and even since I've started playing it a few years ago now, there's been tons of changes that have been taking place in the game, and we can give a huge shout out to the developers for constantly updating it and making this game so awesome. The compressed gases update did sort of mess things up for a little bit, things were a little uncertain, but the developers have been working very diligently to correct all these issues, and by now I would say the issues are fully resolved. Of course there's little bugs here and there, but that's most games nowadays, so that's not a big deal, but overall the game is very stable, it's very fun to make all kinds of creations in, and that's what I just love to do. So huge thank you to the developers for giving us all these free updates as well as purchasable updates as well, that you can get bonus content, additional islands, space, all kinds of stuff that I'm going to dig into later on in this video. In Stormworks' early days, the focus was search and rescue missions, but now we've seen the game shift into tons of sort of exploration and industry style of missions. So now you have mining, you have oil drilling, now even there's space. So the game is so versatile, there gives you a wide variety of different types of creations and things you can build and do in the many different kind of biomes of the game. The Stormworks that I knew a few years ago consisted of these islands that you see here, including many little islands. Then we had a whole new area added, and it was even bigger than the previous landmass that we had. And in the meantime, we had way up north here this sort of Arctic archipelago, or just a bunch of little islands here. Not really major islands, I would say, or huge islands. You got these two here and here, but just a wide assortment of different places to visit and take your ships to. Of course, now recently they've added the space update, and that added just a whole new kind of fourth dimension to the game, because not only are you stuck kind of in this world, you can physically go to the moon, which was a welcome addition to the game and to the content that it lets us build. Now the game consists of what I like to think of two parts. There's the physical missions within the game, where you take a boat or car, helicopter, airplane, spaceship, whatever, into the world and solve missions. But then there's also the part of the game where we physically build things on this workbench. So you can see that it starts off with this singular cube, and by just block by block you can build anything you want. I think I read that I have over 200 creations in this game, but really the sky's the limit as far as building, and you can take it to the next level, which I don't personally do, but you can actually XML code mod the game and kind of do additional changes to elements that the game more or less doesn't come with in stock form. I tend to avoid it, but I do use it for these lights on top of my police and emergency vehicles. What these lights are actually a singular light that looks like this, that is then stretched kind of to be really wide and gives us the appearance of a light bar. So that's just one example, but people mod and code and program different windows and shapes and elements and all kinds of things, and the game gives you that freedom. This sort of presets page gives us an example of what the developers give us to sort of begin our designing or building, and it really serves as a starting point. So what you could see here is there's an example engine, that uses this sort of pre-made engine piece. And of course, then there is the modular engine. So not only can you use the preset engine, you can build your very own engine using individual cylinders and manifolds and all kinds of things. It lets you just sort of build, for example, you want a 2-cylinder, you make a 2-cylinder. You want a 6-cylinder, you make a 6-cylinder. It lets you change the air-fuel ratio. There's tons of engineering aspects in this game. There's tons of programming aspects. There's mechanical engineering. There is everything that you can imagine in terms of, like, let's say, using your brain to solve problems. And I really do like this type of game. And you have that here. So not only do you have diesel engines, you also have steam engines. So you can actually make a coal-fired engine and operate it with steam. Then you have nuclear-powered engines, so reactors. Battery-powered engines, of course, electric engines. And like I said, space rockets, oil rigs. You could build all kinds of stuff, and this is more or less the starting point. One of the DLCs actually have weapons, so you can make missiles and torpedoes. So that was also a welcome addition. Again, straying from the so-called original point of the game, which was search and rescue, and just opening up a broad horizon of activities and different types of creations that you can build and enjoy. I did get a little ahead of myself and didn't explain the fact there is a huge inventory of sort of components that we can use in the creation of our, whether it be vehicle or building or whatever. And with each part, there's various sort of logical parts to it as well. So an easy sort of way to grasp that is if I take a look at a driver's seat, for example, if you press on the select, you can actually edit different parts of it. In this case, the reset mode, so you can put reset or sticky, the sensitivity. You can assign names to different parts and put trim, as well as have AI sort of components. But in addition to this select tab here, you can also go to this logic part, and then there is the number and off and on component. But then there's also composite, and then there's also electric. This one doesn't have it. There's a video component, an audio component, and a rope component. So different parts of the game will actually give you different sort of components. Like these two anchors, you can connect rope nodes, for example. But if you want to have a video one, then you have to have a video sort of connector or receiver, a cable connector, my apologies. So if you have a cable, even though it works the same way, you can't attach a rope or a cable node to a rope anchor. You have to go cable to cable, and then it actually allows the transfer of video data, audio data, and composite data, which is a combination of various sort of on-off and number logic. So I know that all sounds very confusing if you're not very familiar with that, but I just want to explain that you can take a much more advanced approach to this game than just sort of blocks like you would with Lego. I mean, Lego, I do love Lego, and you could kind of build, call it physical things, but there's the added component of having actual Lua programming. So for example, any display that you want to have will have various Lua components within it, and this little menu actually is just for programming microcontrollers, which are like logic nodes. So there's obviously easy ones like OR and, but then there's also very complex ones that you can program. And with that, if we go to Lua, you see here that there's the press button color. So depending on what your input is, you can actually change, you could press a button. That's what this one does. So this one has simple programming. Well, simple after a while. It took me a while to figure it out, but you just connect it like that with your video, and then you connect these to buttons. So if you press hotkey 1, or rather button 1 will press a certain thing, like it'll press detach rope. Button 2 could turn on your monitor. that type of thing. Now, in the early days of the game, you didn't actually have to do all this, or didn't have to connect it fully, but now we actually have batteries. So when I was talking about your electricity, you have to connect all electric things to a battery, and especially now with your engines, you don't just plop an engine on here, and then you don't just plop a propeller to this and call it a ship. You actually have to bring logic, or bring components, or bring power, or bring RPS in this case. So you actually have to attach the parts physically to one another. And not only that, your RPS is a value that you can actually end up getting, getting a hard number, a quantifiable number from the engine that's going to this propeller. You can change it by using gears or transmissions and all that good stuff. So it's an advanced game, much more than your basic, let's call it, building block game where you just kind of build things. And that's without even getting into the mechanical part or the pivots and stuff. So Stormworks allows you to use pivots to sort of build multi-body things. So multi-body meaning this red stuff all acts as one body, whereas this green one acts as a separate body, allowing you to actually rotate about the red one. If it was not without this pivot, this would now just fall right off. It's not physically attached, or you can go ahead and attach it, and now it again acts as one singular body. So this is where now you can kind of do that approach where Lego sometimes use joints to sort of make things. You can use these to make various curvature or shapes that are not necessarily in the game. Like, what I mean is that you can't spawn a diagonal wall. You could do something like this if I just drag it across, but it's not exactly, it's not a block that's rotated, whereas you could take this and rotate it 45 degrees and it'll be different than what I just drew here. So that's just a very, very basic overview of the game. Of course, you can color and do all sorts of things. That just goes, I think, without saying at this point. But I'm talking about the logic, the components, the various things, all that type of stuff. When I look at the base game here, it says that it was released end of 2020. So it's been out for over 3 years, 3.5, almost 4 years in this case. Like, it's the beginning of 2024, so this is end of 2020, almost 2021. But over 3 years now, and since its release, I'd say it's grown a massive amount. You could pick it up on sale now, but this video is not at all sponsored by the game, so I've not made any money from the developers. I'm not sponsored by them. They did gift me the Space DLC, but the base game itself is probably enough for most people. But then you add certain things, like if you want to build with weapons and weaponry, you have the search and destroy. So this gives you those weapons that I was talking about. Then if you want to have a very sort of advanced mine type situation where you can mine for coal, you can drill for oil, all that type of stuff, that's where you can really shine with this industrial frontier. It also unlocks a huge island in addition to that, so not only that's where you get kind of this deserty island. And lastly, now we recently got the space update. So this, with the space update here, unfortunately it has mostly negative reviews and mixed reviews, but it really did add a lot of parts to the game and a lot of fun sort of components. It just, I think, still a little early, and people may be a little bit bitter from kind of that issue of the broken compressed gases and stuff, but this adds a ton of aspects to the game, of course, so it is a welcome addition. And as long as the developers just keep working on the game, keep building it, keep expanding it, developing it, I think that this game is going to be amazing. It already is amazing, but what I'm talking about is it's something that you could play for a long period of time and not get bored of, just because of the sheer amount of creativity. If we pop into the workshop here, you could see that we have sort of some vehicles that are highlighted. Shout out to my own vehicle here. But really, it's not just about me. It's about all these awesome creations that people build. Tons of creativity that you'll see. Like, just take a look at this thing. We have some old steamship, we got ferries, we got people developing just those sort of Lua controllers. So this uses a GPS. And looking at these sheer numbers, just like all these types of creations that you may have. So just vehicles, there's 200,000 creations. So you can spend a long time going through, there's another one of my creations, but you could spend a long time going through all of these and really, I think, enjoy what other people have created and maybe get inspired yourself to create all sorts of things. So that's what I love about it. It just has that constant replayability where you're not just stuck beating a mission and being done with, but rather endless evolvement of your own personal skills and your own sort of ability to create things. Now, there is multiplayer as well. I'm not a huge player on multiplayer. I do some testing, but that's really it. I know there's other people that play multiplayer all the time, and I know lots of people on my Discord server play online, but for me, my favorite aspect is the engineering behind it, the building component. So I just opened up one of my ships. If I go to this select tool, you could see the amount of different components that there are that you can be selected. If we go to the logic, take a look at the electricity. So this is just the electrical components that you'll see in this ship. And this isn't even a big ship. This is like a small to medium sized ship. All the composite and the huge amount of data nodes. So just looking at this huge mess of data here, you can you can see that it took a while to make, but once you get a hang of it, it's not actually that difficult. But it's a lot of fun, at least for me it is. So I would say that if you have any inkling of kind of engineering, creativity, if you're aspiring to be an engineer, if you just like this type of thing, this can satisfy like any kind of creative itch that I could see having with just the sheer amount of things. Now, obviously, the game is sort of on a more or less realistic kind of world. I wouldn't say it's Earth per se, but it's a very similar type of landmass to Earth. So there are some key differences, but there's also a lot of key similarities that you'll find on these different planets as well. So I do think that that is extremely cool and gives you that level of creativity that you may be looking for in a game. I personally would love to see a fishing update, and I know the developers have in one of their videos actually referred to me by name and said that they do like my suggestion, which was encouraging, as well as I have put forward some other update ideas and DLC ideas for industry, for sort of quality of life and stuff like that. So I think that the fact that they're making these new DLCs and updates is a testament to the fact that they want to support this game and give us all a good gaming experience. So I do really like that, and whatever they decide to do for this update, whether it is some sort of fishing or more sort of realism when it comes to the search and rescue, I'll be very happy to see it and super excited for it to come. So we can expect updates from them for this, which is highly encouraging and really nice to know that they're on the way as well. One thing that I liked in this game since the very beginning, and what I'm talking about is that since like I was kind of playing it without knowing how to build anything, is just the amount of how cool this sort of stormy type of atmosphere looks. Now, I don't live close to a body of water near the ocean, so for me ships are like, they're not something I'm unknown to me, but I don't really experience them in a day-to-day. So when you kind of see this really big coastal type of storm and you're, you know, in the middle of the ocean all by yourself, it is something, there's something to be said about sort of doing those types of missions and a game that does that well, and especially in a creation that you built yourself. So if something fails, then it's your own fault. So unfortunately that way you kind of, at least the way I see it is, you make something that's useful for your own survival, and that's what kind of puts you and lets you really accomplish the missions that the game sets out for you in the most extreme of conditions. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just a very basic overview of what the game is today. It's grown a lot since the beginning. They've been constantly, and by they I mean the developers have constantly been adding parts to the game to make it more enjoyable. So they're working diligently and very hard to constantly give us both a new experience, and sometimes for free and sometimes at an additional cost as a DLC. But I really do find it awesome what they're doing. Yes, there's sort of bugs and glitches, but there's also a lot of fun to be had in this game. So if you're not playing it, I would definitely recommend you give it a try, if it's something that you're into. But hopefully this video sort of gave you maybe a basic feeler for what it offers. And if you're into first-person shooters, then maybe this isn't for you. But if you're into building things and kind of creativity and engineering, then I would say this is a worthwhile candidate to give a shot. So, thank you all for watching. Happy New Year once more, and stay tuned for more content and more creations. Until next time.